Now, this is a very interesting topic. Is it possible to accumulate $100 million inside of your TFSA? Not a million, not 2 million, $100 million. That's tax-free money. Is it possible? So I saw this article in the Globe and Mail, and I wanted to kind of break it down and go over it with you guys because I think that it's a very, very interesting topic because it had not ever crossed my mind until I saw this article. So for 2025, the TFSA contribution limit is $7,000 once again. So that brings our total cumulative contribution room that you could have if you have not touched your TFSA as of yet to $102,000 as of 2025. And of course, if you're under the age of 33, these numbers for you will differ slightly based on when you turned 18, obviously. So the person who wrote this article in the Globe and Mail actually ran the numbers to see if it was actually possible to reach $100 million inside of your TFSA. And they used 3 different investing strategies and made some assumptions on the way. For scenario 1, so assume that the investor made max contributions from 2009 to 2024, which is $95,000 contributed inside of the TFSA. And then assume they contribute the max for the rest of their life, which is $7,000 a year going forward. And we're assuming $7,000 a year, even though that the contribution limit is often adjusted or supposed to be adjusted for inflation each year. So the number could be higher or lower moving forward, but we're going to use $7,000 a year to keep it simple. So in scenario 1, we're going to assume that the TFSA was invested into the TSX Composite Total Return Index for the 15 years from 2009 to 2024. So that's about 9.98% annually. So with this result, the TFSA would reach $100 million, given all the above assumptions, by the year 2086, meaning that if you started in 2009 and you were 18 years old, you would be 95 years old by the time it hit $100 million. Of course, when you adjust that number for inflation, it's not 100 million. It might be more like 20 or 25 million, but it's still a considerable amount, right? Compared to where you started, which is a few $1,000s. Now, moving on to scenario number 2. Now assume that you made the max contributions, but instead of the TSX, the money is invested into the S&P 500 Total Return Canadian Dollar ETF. Again, this is for 2009 till 2024. That gets you an average annual return of almost 16% a year. And in this scenario, the TFSA would reach $100 million in the year 2062 or after 53 years of investing. So that's going from 10% to 16% a year. So instead of reaching it at age 95, you would reach it at age 71. Again, this is all just hypothetical. Obviously, if you're young, you're probably thinking, I don't want that money at 71 or 95. I want it now, right? Or I want it when I'm 40 or 50. Now let's go to scenario 3, which is the least realistic out of the 3 scenarios. Now assume that the investor is a stock picker and they invested in Constellation Software back in 2009, which in my opinion is one of the greatest Canadian investments of all time. It's provided a 40.09% rate of return from 2009 to 2024 annually. So if a TFSA continued to get that rate of return for the foreseeable future, it would reach $100 million by 2035. So 26 years of investing if you start from 2009. Obviously, again, assuming max contributions every year. So yeah, it is possible to reach $100 million in your TFSA, but as the article states as well, a lot of things can go wrong in trying to do so, especially in scenario 3 where you pick one stock and you hold it forever. So here's something important that you need to understand about all this. So according to the World Economic Forum, corporate longevity is declining. Back in 1970, companies inside of the S&P 500 had an average tenure of 35 years. That has gone down to 20 years by the year 2018, and it's expected to drop below 15 years as of 2030. And what this tells us is that today's investors don't hold individual stocks for nearly as long as they did before. So this is why it's hard to use Warren Buffett's buy and hold forever strategy with individual companies in order to reach the level of wealth that Warren Buffett has achieved. Now, it is possible, but it's more and more unlikely. And the reason being is that, a company like Coca-Cola, he's held forever and it's continued to grow. It hasn't gotten acquired. It has not merged. Didn't file for bankruptcy. It's still there, but it is tougher and tougher to do in today's day and age. So that doesn't necessarily mean don't buy individual stocks because you won't make a high rate of return and thinks everything's going to go wrong. It just means that you can make a high rate of return. It's just at some point that high rate of return will die down because that company could get acquired or it could merge with another company and it's not going to be the same company anymore. But in my opinion, scenario 1 and 2 are the way to go when you invest in a diversified basket of stocks like a TSX index, or my personal favorite, the S&P 500 index, and a set it and forget it type of thing, and you just keep doing it the same thing over and over again. Yeah, different companies are going to be in and out of the S&P 500. Companies, 10, 15 years ago that were at the top of the S&P 500, some of them don't exist or are not part of the S&P 500 anymore. So a lot can change in a long period of time. When you own the S&P 500, again, the work is done for you. If a company's not performing, it gets pulled out, and you own the S&P 500, not the companies that are there individually. Right? You own a portfolio, a basket that is being managed. Anyways, let me know your thoughts in the comments as usual, and I will see you guys in the next one.